Well, for what we're dealing with now, I think it is time to make a turn to fiscal stimulus, to some fiscal structural kinds of solutions here. But keep in mind that the economic health of our country right now really depends on the consumer's health, the individual's health. And so the kind of stimulus that is really going to be most effective is the kind of stimulus that is actually going to deal with the health of the American household. So that is really what I think needs to be the focus. Really, if we're looking at doing something to kind of stimulate demand, it would need to be something that would be focused on what exactly the American household is dealing with.
If we do see some kind of broad fiscal stimulus announced, does that mean the Fed doesn't need to and or won't cut again? Or do you think that's so priced in and expected by the market that we're going to see some more rate cuts?
Right. I think we could still see rate cuts. Keep in mind that rate cuts are going to be most effective when they respond to a demand shock, not a supply shock. And it's possible that the supply shock has morphed into a demand shock at this point, right? So you can see now the possibility that consumer demand could essentially fall off or get reduced if people pull back from their spending. And that essentially is that's the recession risk. That's the piece that has to be watched. And so really what is necessary is a coordinated policy, a coordinated use of fiscal tools and monetary policy tools. And by the way, to take that coordination point even broader, keep in mind this is a global potential pandemic, right? So the real kind of coordination that would be the ultimate way to go would be one that was globally coordinated among other countries' fiscal authorities and monetary policy
Not much
authorities.
is being globally coordinated right now.
I'm afraid not. Right. So there was an attempt. There was a G7 discussion. I'm losing track of time.
Last week,
right? And it was an
One week ago
attempt.
today.
It was the day. I think it was
The rate cut was only a week ago.
That's right. It was that same day, but nothing came of it. Right? We didn't see, in essence, a kind of coordinated step towards containing any potential shortfall in demand.
We're going to have a meeting tomorrow at the White House with all the bank CEOs. What do you expect to kind of come out of that? Is that just some window dressing, or is anything kind of meaningful on the regulatory side or the lending side that you think could materialize?
I think there could be some meaningful discussions that come out of that, because keep in mind that the Fed has not just, the Fed funds rate cut at its disposal, but some regulatory tools at its disposal. So the Fed and the regulated banks could have discussions about what kind of steps in terms of forbearance possibly could be made. What other kinds of regulatory options are there for the banks to be taking right now that would help, cushion any kind of blow here? At
this point, 8 days from the next Fed decision, is there any way they don't essentially come in line with what the market is projecting for them right now with a cut?
Well, it is. It's hard to imagine that they wouldn't, because essentially they do need to stay aligned with markets. At the other hand, they do have limited bandwidth, as we know, and as we've talked about a lot before. They are very close to the zero lower bound. Query as to whether this is the point in time when they are going to feel they need to use it.
How close are we to QE?
QE. Well, QE has a really negative taste for a lot of people. They remember it from its use during the response to the financial crisis. They recall that it was massive, that it continued for a long period of time.
Who's they, at the Fed?
No, this is Americans. Americans have a sense that it was really something that was in ways actually not democratic, that it was engaged in by a group of elites who were not in touch with what was really happening to the economy at the time. And you'll recall that it took a long time to actually turn the situation around, that its use was quite extensive. It had, by the way, big effects on our distribution of wealth and incomes in our society. So it had great, it thinned out the middle class. There was a sense really that this was not a good thing from the perspective of income and wealth inequality.